It's ridiculous. I mean, what is wrong with this guy? He styles himself as the courageous David taking on the evil dragon of the media, of those awful newspapers. And I'll tell you what he and all his celebrity chums think. They think that because they hate newspapers so much, they can say what the hell they like about newspapers like the Mail, and they don't have to prove it. They discovered they do have to prove it. They had no evidence for this. Harry has been utterly humiliated today.
Judge in this case, a man called Matthew Nicholas, who dismissed Harry's case against the Mail on Sunday, the negotiations at Sandringham about protection, and said that Harry had lied in his statement in that case. So he had form of not being, so to speak, enthralled to the royal family.
The verdict came down today for Prince Harry's court case against the Daily Mail, and he has been officially deemed, in fact, all of him and his co-claimants, there are 7 among them, were determined to be losers scenario, and this could not be more of a disaster for Prince Harry, especially as he begins his week-long series of engagements in the UK.
Some stories aren't decided by a judge's ruling at all. They're decided by the people who've watched everything unfold for years. Sometimes, one opinion carries more weight than any courtroom verdict ever could, especially when it comes from someone who's spent decades studying the rise and fall of powerful public figures. This week, that voice belonged to Tom Bower, the veteran biographer who literally wrote a book about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And after the latest court decision, he didn't describe it as just another setback. He called it the beginning of the end. Speaking with Kinsey Schofield, on the very day the Daily Mail verdict was handed down, Bower laid out a prediction that immediately grabbed attention. While many commentators focused only on the legal defeat, he argued that something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. His view wasn't simply about one lawsuit.
Between Ukraine, the letter he wrote in the New Statesman regarding anti-Semitism in the UK, he wants to be taken as a serious character. And then a week like this happens and he loses all authority, all credibility. And a judge says, I didn't trust your testimony. And that wreaks havoc on.
It was about what this moment could mean for Harry and Meghan's future, and especially for the pressure now surrounding their public image and marriage. I want to carefully break down why Bower reached that conclusion, what the facts behind his argument actually show, and where he lands on one question that many other royal commentators have answered very differently. That question is whether this marriage can survive everything happening around it right now. Stay with me for that final part, because Bower's view stands apart from almost everyone else covering this story. But first, let's look at the verdict itself, because many of the headlines people saw didn't tell the complete picture of what actually happened inside that courtroom. On the 7th of July, a High Court judge dismissed every claim in Harry's case against the Daily Mail. Bower immediately highlighted something that much of the reporting barely mentioned. This wasn't Harry's first defeat before that judge. According to Bower, it was his second, and he believes that pattern sends a much bigger message. In his view, the establishment is signaling that it no longer trusts Harry's claims, despite his position as 5th in line to the throne. That's Bower's interpretation, and he presented it without hesitation. To be fair to the official ruling, the judge never described Harry as dishonest. Instead, the case was dismissed because it relied more on suspicion than on evidence that met the legal standard, while still accepting parts of Harry's testimony. That distinction is important, but Bower deliberately looks beyond it.
These two delusional narcissists, every 6 to 18 months or so, decide they need another dose of adoration or just attention. They'll take it either way. And thanks to the king's love for his son, which I understand, they continue to get it. So I agree with you. The royal title should be pulled, and we should stop engaging in the fiction that they have any love for King Charles. They don't. They only have love for themselves.
Correct.
His view is that Harry entered court expecting his account to be accepted on trust, only to discover that the court expected stronger supporting evidence. Katie Nicholl, appearing on the same Piers Morgan panel as Bower, put it even more bluntly than anyone. According to Katie Nicholl, the biggest winners weren't either side of the argument. They were the lawyers. In her view, Harry walked away as the biggest loser. Daily Mail chairman Paul Dacre didn't hold back after the ruling either. He described the outcome as a momentous victory and referred to Harry as a confused and angry young man. He also remarked that there wasn't enough laundry in the world to wash all the private family matters Harry had brought into public view. That was the reaction from the Victoria side, and it was anything but restrained. But what makes that response more significant isn't the harsh language itself. It's the possible impact on the Sussexes' public image. Much of their public profile has centered on Harry sharing his personal experiences and presenting a version of events he believes deserved to be heard. Bauer argues that's where the real challenge begins. In his view, once a court dismisses key claims for lacking sufficient proof, that story may not carry the same influence it once did. He believes that shift could weaken the narrative that has supported much of Harry's public identity. That brings attention to another figure Bauer highlighted, roughly £50 million. That's the estimated total cost being discussed for the lengthy legal battle.
This is a guy that had the world at his fingertips and threw it all away, his wife's Hollywood dream, after she failed in the industry because she was a bad actress. Anybody watching her shows can tell she's a really crappy actress. Not only did he leave, he basically threw a steaming pile of doggy doo-doo on Charles's palace doorstep and then proceeded to try to light the rest of the house on fire.
And the losing side in a case of this scale could end up responsible for a significant portion of those expenses. A hearing at the end of July is already scheduled to determine how those costs will be divided. Bauer didn't soften his assessment. He claimed Harry isn't insured for anything close to that amount and believes the newspaper group will seek to recover its legal costs. He summed it up by saying the very establishment Harry has criticized for years could now play a major role in determining his financial future. Charlotte Griffiths of the Mail on Sunday, whose reporting was part of the case, also questioned Harry's financial position. She said she believes he doesn't have unlimited funds available and claims she's heard he's trying to secure another Netflix agreement after the previous deal reportedly ended. In her words, everything is a dumpster fire. Meanwhile, Express columnist Carol Malone focused on the financial side of the dispute. She noted that the case reportedly cost an enormous amount. The newspaper group wants its legal expenses recovered, and Harry, along with the other claimants, could face a substantial bill. As she put it, nobody knows exactly how many millions they could ultimately have to pay. Picture the actual financial machine funding the Sussex lifestyle right now. The financial picture now looks very different from what many expected. Reports suggest the Netflix income hasn't matched the early excitement. Spotify is no longer part of the equation, and Harry's memoir provided a one-time payment.
What you described about Buckingham Palace's detailed breakdown is actually a matter of a breakdown of trust. Point about Harry was, can we trust him? And because of all the briefing and the reversals and all the somersaults, what they're really saying is, we cannot deal with this. We don't trust.
Never believed it. I did, because I was working at the Mail at that time, and we weren't allowed to do anything wrong there. And we were, very, very looked over. But Harry had to do it. And I just saw something I read before, which was that his wife absolutely hated the Mail.
Instead of a lasting revenue stream, now attention has turned to the possibility of a massive legal bill arriving at the same time his court defeat has dominated headlines. Bauer argues this isn't just a temporary setback. In his view, it's the first major sign that much bigger problems could be developing. If you're enjoying this deeper look beyond the headlines, hitting the like button helps this channel reach more people interested in this kind of analysis. Stay with me, because the next point Bauer raises is the one he believes could have the biggest long-term impact. There's another issue beneath the financial headlines that deserves a closer look. Bauer believes the Sussexes' commercial success has largely depended on Harry's personal story, his experiences, his criticisms of the institution, and his account of what happened to him. Those experiences have formed the basis for books, documentaries, interviews, and other projects over the years. Bauer argues that legal proceedings create a very different environment. Courts require evidence that meets legal standards instead of relying on personal accounts alone. He believes this ruling didn't just carry financial consequences, it also created a public legal record showing that key allegations against the newspaper group weren't proven to the standard required by the court. The difference between not proven and false is extremely important in law, but Bauer believes many members of the public may not see that distinction the same way when judging someone's overall credibility, and he thinks that difference could have lasting consequences. This is where Bauer's analysis takes another turn. He believes the ruling may have strengthened Prince William's position if discussions about the Sussexes' future role within the royal family ever take place. Bauer suggested William could now feel he has stronger grounds to argue that enough is enough, pointing to the approach previously taken with Prince Andrew. Bauer made that comparison deliberately, drawing a parallel between Andrew's loss of official royal duties and Harry's current situation in California. He isn't claiming anything is about to happen immediately. Instead, he says this reflects what he believes is the changing mood behind palace walls. According to Bauer, this defeat may have cost Harry far more than money. In his view, it also weakened the influence he once held through the possibility of future books, interviews, or documentaries revealing more about his family. What happens when someone's next big revelation no longer carries the same impact? According to Bauer, that's the position Harry now finds himself in after the recent court ruling. He believes that once a court rejects key claims, future interviews and new allegations may naturally face greater public skepticism than they once did. Bauer used an especially blunt description for what he believes has happened to Harry's public standing. He called it self-slain, describing it as a form of reputational self-destruction. Coming from the biographer who spent years researching Harry's life, those words carried particular weight. It's also worth looking closely at the comparison Bauer made with Prince Andrew, because it appeared to be a deliberate one. According to Bauer, Andrew's downfall wasn't caused by a single controversy. Instead, it resulted from years of reputational damage building until the institution reportedly concluded that continuing to support him had become too costly. His royal roles and honorary titles were removed gradually before the final decisions were made. Bauer believes a similar calculation could now be taking place regarding Harry. In his view, years of public criticism, combined with the memoir, documentaries, and now this legal defeat, may have shifted the balance in a way that wasn't the case even a year ago. He also offered a stark opinion about what King Charles should do next. Bauer argued that the king should create as much distance as possible and make it clear the Sussexes are no longer expected to play a significant role in Britain. He added that the remaining question is whether they eventually step back quietly or continue speaking publicly before moving on. That's a remarkable way for a veteran royal biographer to describe the situation surrounding a serving prince, and it reflects just how much Bauer believes public and institutional attitudes may have changed. If you're finding this deeper analysis useful, hitting the like button really helps this channel reach more people who enjoy looking beyond the headlines. Stay with me, because what happened next made the situation even more striking. The timing, according to many observers, couldn't have been much worse. Harry reportedly returned to Britain, hoping there might finally be an opportunity for warmer relations with his family, especially as concerns about King Charles's health made that possibility seem more urgent than ever. Rather than opening new doors, the week seemed to become a series of quiet setbacks. Reports described confusion over where Harry would stay, along with questions about accommodation on royal property that apparently were never fully settled. Bauer believes King Charles may now be much more cautious about rebuilding a close relationship with his son, with practical reasons, like a full schedule, becoming an easy way to keep some distance. It's a striking way to describe a father and son's relationship, but Bauer believes that's where things currently stand. Palace sources quoted by Katie Nicholl addressed another major question. Could Harry ever return as a working royal in any official role? According to Nicholl, the answer was simple: no, it's not happening. She suggested the biggest obstacle isn't King Charles, but Prince William. In her words, those bridges are well and truly burned. The wording reportedly used by palace sources is worth noticing. It wasn't presented as a dramatic official decision, but as a relationship that had gradually reached a point where reconciliation no longer seemed realistic. That paints a very different picture from a single public announcement. Instead, it suggests the distance developed over many years through a series of events, disagreements, and personal decisions until eventually the outcome no longer required an official declaration because it had become widely understood. Looking at the broader picture, Bower sees an increasingly cautious king, a brother who appears unwilling to reconnect, and a recent court defeat that, in his opinion, gives both of them another reason to maintain that distance. Harry reportedly returned, hoping for reconciliation, but instead faced what many see as another sign that the family remains divided. One part of this story stands out regardless of where people's sympathies lie. This visit was supposed to highlight the countdown to the 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham, a cause that even Bower has described positively. Instead, attention shifted almost entirely to the legal case, the security debate, and the questions surrounding Harry's accommodation. Headlines that could have focused on the competitors and veterans instead centered on the Duke himself. The Sun's Kate Mansi summed it up with a memorable remark, saying Harry and Andrew were once known around the palace as the Dukes of Hazzard because controversy often seemed to follow them. A man once widely recognized for his military service is now, according to some commentators, increasingly associated with controversy instead. With Birmingham preparing to host the Invictus Games in 2027, Bower believes the biggest challenge may be ensuring that the ongoing headlines don't overshadow the message Harry wants people to hear about Invictus. A bigger question may now be unfolding behind the scenes. According to Bower, sponsors could be asking whether they still want their brands associated with this situation. He believes companies may hesitate if the headlines remain focused on Harry's legal defeat instead of the charitable causes connected to him. Kinsey Schofield says she's been watching this pattern for some time. She points back to what reportedly happened with Centerbell, Harry's longtime charity, where critics argued that negative publicity made fundraising more difficult, and some sponsors, including Audi, eventually stepped away. She believes similar concerns are beginning to emerge around Invictus, with reports suggesting some people involved are worried the conversation is becoming more about controversy than the event itself. An important point deserves to be made here. Invictus has not been cancelled. The Birmingham Games are still scheduled to go ahead. Concerns about sponsorship come from commentators and Bower's own analysis, not from any official announcement or confirmed sponsor withdrawal. Even so, Bower argues that when the founder becomes a bigger headline than the cause itself, it creates a challenge that cannot simply be ignored. And challenges like that rarely disappear overnight. One part of the Invictus discussion often gets overlooked. The veterans competing in these games have no involvement in the ongoing tensions surrounding the royal family. They trained, qualified, and spent months preparing for Birmingham. Yet instead of headlines celebrating their determination and achievements, much of the coverage focused on court proceedings, security debates, and accommodation questions. For an organization that depends heavily on public goodwill and sponsor confidence, Bower believes that's a difficult position to be in when attention shifts away from the athletes the event was created to support. That brings us to the one area where Bower breaks away from many other commentators covering this story. Across television panels, newspapers, and social media, one prediction keeps appearing: divorce. Meghan remained in California while Harry faced the court case in London, and many people interpreted that distance as a sign the marriage could be under serious strain. Bower, however, rejects that conclusion, and he has consistently taken the same position during earlier periods of public speculation. When asked directly whether the marriage would survive, Bower answered without hesitation. Yes, he said, because they need each other. But he didn't present that as a romantic conclusion. His description was far more sobering. The word he chose wasn't love or partnership, it was survival. In Bower's view, They remain together because of mutual dependence rather than public perception. He argues they are facing growing challenges while continuing to build projects connected to Harry's royal background, despite increasing criticism from many observers. There's a specific logic behind Bauer's survival theory that deserves to be explained carefully rather than simply repeated, because it changes how you read everything else in this story. Bauer believes that if Harry and Meghan separated today, both of them could end up in a weaker position than they are as a couple. Whatever challenges their public image faces, their combined profile still attracts more attention and opportunities than either would likely generate alone. He also argues that a divorce would hand critics exactly what they've predicted for years, a sign that the post-royal chapter wasn't as stable as many believed. In Bauer's view, neither Harry nor Meghan can currently afford to give that impression, regardless of what their private relationship may actually look like, away from public attention. After looking at everything Bauer said, that's the part of his argument that stands out most. While many commentators continue predicting divorce, Bauer sees something different. He believes the marriage continues because, at least for now, both of them still benefit more from staying together than from going their separate ways. He ties that conclusion to several recent developments: the possibility of a substantial legal cost hearing, continued tensions within the royal family, King Charles's reported caution, and a court ruling that he believes has weakened Harry's public narrative. Taken together, Bauer argues these events have created one of the most difficult periods the Sussexes have faced since stepping back from royal duties. The beginning of the end. Those weren't my words. They were back. Coming from someone who has spent decades researching this couple and the royal family, it's a striking conclusion. Whether history ultimately proves him right is something only time can answer. Like any long-time commentator, Bauer has made predictions that haven't always come true. But the issues he points to, a recent court ruling, ongoing family tensions, questions about finances, and growing public scrutiny, are all based on events that have unfolded publicly in recent weeks. That's why many people see this discussion as different from the usual cycle of royal speculation. Now, I'd like to hear your view. Do you think Bauer's survival theory makes more sense than the divorce predictions many others are making? And do you believe his assessment of William's position is realistic, or does it go too far? If you enjoyed this breakdown, please give the video a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more in-depth royal coverage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.